Welcome to the IBMS Lothian and Borders podcast.
Is there enough bagpipe in that? Hello, my name is Mike Gray and I'd like to welcome you to the IBMS Lothian and Borders branch podcast. What's all this about, you might ask? Well, for those of you listening who don't know, the Institute of Biomedical Science, which is the professional body for biomedical scientists in the UK, has branches in all corners of the country, and in the southeast of Scotland, where Edinburgh and the Borders sit, we have a branch. So this podcast was an idea from the branch committee to look at, in the first instance, at career stories of biomedical scientists. Why career stories? There is a lot of information out there on how to get into biomedical science, and there are some podcasts that focus on scientific topics. But from a people perspective, we often get very useful talks from senior individuals in the profession. And as interesting as they are, the committee hit upon the idea of listening to all levels of staff involved in biomedical science with the aim of capturing the stories of professionals you might not necessarily hear from, and to look at all stages of the career ladder. So each story, we hope, will be inspirational. Each story will have a message, and if anything, will highlight the myriad of ways that people get into biomedical science. So if you like stories and finding out about people, then stick around. What could possibly go wrong? Hello, and today I'm here with Philippa Hulme. So Philippa, tell everybody briefly who you are and what it is you do.
Hi Mike, thank you for having me on the podcast. As you said, my name's Philippa and I'm currently a lecturer at Robert Gordon University, and I work mostly with the biomedical science cohorts. So we have biomedical science and applied biomedical science.
Right, so Robert Gordon is up north, isn't it? Or,
yeah,
sorry,
we're Aberdeen.
yeah, fit for and all that kind of stuff. Right, okay. Up north, Aberdeen, so that's north of Edinburgh for anybody that's international. Right, okay. And they have, we'll get into this maybe a wee bit later, but they have an accredited degree course, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, okay. So if you cast your mind back to the very, very beginning, so before you were doing what you're currently doing, and you were sitting around one day, probably, I don't know, before school, who knows? How did the journey start? How did the work journey start? What started you off on this path?
When I was at school, I always knew I wanted to be in some sort of job where I was helping people, but I always thought I would end up doing physiotherapy.
Okay.
That's what I kind of wanted to do. But I thought I want to help people, but I don't know if I want to be patient facing. I quite liked science, so I kind of naturally just stumbled across the biomedical science courses and thought, oh, that sounds like something that I would be interested in. So
Okay.
that's what I ended up applying.
So did you do at school, they used to take you to the careers teacher, and they get you to fill in an electronic, it was when I did it was like a very early electronic, very early computerized thing where you ticked a load of boxes and it kind of pumped out some careers. Did you ever do one of those?
I did, and I think it ended up coming out as some sort of teacher, which is quite ironic, the role that I'm in now.
Right, okay. So mine had come out as occupational therapist. Because I guess you would have answered the questions along the lines of you wanted to help people and you might have wanted to be in public service or something like that, yeah?
Yeah, I actually did we did a work experience at school. I did 2 days of it, and I did it with occupational therapists. I quite enjoyed that as well, yeah.
All right, okay. Right, okay. So you decided that you wanted to do something that would help people, and I'm guessing you were okay at science at school. Then what happened?
I kind of knew I'm from Aberdeen. I didn't really want to move far away. I've always been into horses and I had horses at the time, so I wanted to be close to home. So I was torn between the University of Aberdeen Biomedical Science course and the Robert Gordon University Biomedical Science course. And if I'm truthful, I didn't get the grades to get into Aberdeen University.
All right, okay.
So I stumbled into the accredited course at Robert Gordon University.
Right, okay. Was Robert Gordon's one of those new universities where it started off as a polytechnic, or was it always a university?
I think I want to say at some point it was maybe a college, but I don't know. I'd be lying if I said I knew that 100%. But it's been on the go for quite a long time.
Yeah. Okay, so you're at university, and you've started your biomedical science career story. Did you understand at that point what biomedical science was? So how had that filtered into your brain?
I wouldn't say that I did, to be honest. I'd just thought it would give me a lot of career options. I thought at that time maybe I wanted to go into some sort of oil and gas. So I kind of picked the degree thinking it would just lead me to some open doors. And it's only when I started the course, Robert Gordon had like a generic first year where everybody did the same, and then it would split into an applied course and students would go off onto placement.
Right, okay.
So it was only really in that first year of studying that I started to think, actually, what is a biomedical scientist and what do they do?
Right, okay. I mean, that's quite a scary thing. I mean, I understand, you've got onto a course. Hurrah! I'm away, Mum. I'm off to university. But you didn't have a clear plan at that stage saying, well, I'm going to do a biomedical science course. I'm going to be a biomedical science. It was like there could have been a number of different avenues for you to go down. Yeah.
And I liked the course and the sound of the course for that reason, because I thought I'm just leaving my options open.
All right, perfect. Okay. So when did your options start to narrow then?
So the way that it worked for me was at the end of first year, you could undertake an interview to go on to the applied course, and that's where you started learning what is the IBMS registration portfolio, and how does that work? How will that get you a career in biomedical science? And from the information that I got, I decided to apply to do the placements, not particularly because I thought that's where I want to be, but I thought, well, this can't hinder me having this portfolio. It can only help me in my future career.
Of course,
So I went on to the placements and did a multidisciplinary placement in my university degree.
Right, at Forester Hill.
I did, Forester Hill, yeah.
Right, okay. So you had to be interviewed to get into the applied stream, if you like.
Yeah.
So if you hadn't been successful in that interview to get into the applied stream, what would happen?
So you go on to like an IBMS accredited biomedical science course, but it doesn't have the integrated placements. So I don't know what I would have done had I ended up there.
Okay. So and when you went to Forester Hill, that's where Aberdeen Royal Infirmary is, everybody. That's again in Aberdeen, which is up north of Edinburgh. Was it a rotational placement through different departments, or was it in a specific area?
So they actually do two. So you do placement in second year of university, and you go through each department for a week, and you just get to see what goes on there. You do very minimal competency work, but you just kind of get a feel for the different disciplines.
Okay.
And then when you get to third year, you do two big placements. So you do one in like a more automated laboratory and one in a more manual laboratory. So I did mine in blood transfusion and microbiology, my placements.
So we're now putting microbiology against blood transfusion for a final choice. Yes.
Yeah.
So was there a final choice then in the latter years of the degree? Did they make you, or do they ask you to specialise?
No, not at university. It's just when you graduate, and you see what jobs are available and where you might want to go.
Right. Okay. So let's assume at this point you've got to the end of your degree, and congratulations, you've passed. Now this is the applied degree, so I'm assuming at this point you've got your HCPC certificate. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So but you're fairly generic at this point. You're a fairly generic biomedical scientist.
Yeah.
Fit
No
to be ready.
specialisms.
Yeah, fit to be ready to be slotted in somewhere. So in terms of that first job then, how did that come about?
To be honest, when I graduated, I still wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to be a biomedical scientist. I thought I'll just let fate decide, and if I don't get a job, then I'll go and do some further study. So I applied for actually a role in both blood transfusion and microbiology.
Okay.
And I was offered them both, but the blood transfusion was unfortunately a fixed term, so I went with microbiology.
Yeah, I seem to do nothing but interview microbiologists. Because I'm not an ex, but I'm a bacteriologist. So you chose the best one, clearly.
Yes, definitely.
Sorry, I'm gonna get hate mail from biochemists and hematologists. Right, okay. So that was microbiology at Forester Hill. And at that point, I guess, are you you're in as a Band 5 trainee, or is this before Agenda for Change, before 2004?
No, I entered as a Band 5 trainee.
Roughly what year was that then?
It was 2018.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Oh, dear. God, you make me feel old. Okay. So you went a Band 5 trainee, yes?
Yep.
Right, in microbiology.
Yep.
So I guess the next stage was that specialist.
Yeah, I started my specialist in microbiology pretty much as soon as I went in. You just kind of crack on with it, I think.
Yeah.
You have just come out of university, and I think you're in that flow of, I just need to get the work done. So yeah, I took just over 2 years to do my specialist, which fell right in that COVID time, which is a weird time.
Okay. So this is in my head, that's all relatively recent. So what happened next? So you're there as I'm assuming a Band 6 specialist?
I got my specialist, and I started doing an MSc in Biomedical Science. So worked away on that for the next couple of years, and just enjoyed being a BMS in microbiology, to be honest. I really enjoyed the job and the job role.
Okay. So was your master's degree sponsored by Aberdeen?
They did help me to fund some of it, and it was also part funded by me as well. And I did that through the University of Greenwich in London.
Okay. Cool.
It's done online distance learning, MSc.
So then what was your next career step? What were you thinking?
I was probably about partway through my MSc. COVID had kind of died down. We'd gone through the strange time that was, I would say. A lot of people always ask me, was that really busy in microbiology? But I think virology is to get the brunt of that. And I think at that point I was just ready for a new challenge, ready to have a bit of a change of scenery. And I knew I was really heavily involved in training in the department anyway. I really loved doing that. Any new trainees that came in, I was keen to get my hands on their registration or their specialist portfolios and help out. So I kind of thought some sort of teaching role would be good for me.
Okay.
So I reached out to somebody that I knew at Robert Gordon and just kind of asked, is there any way that I could, come in for some lectures or get involved in some way? And they replied to say that they were going on maternity leave and there would be a maternity post. So I applied for that.
Okay. Was that a part-time, full-time, fixed term?
It was a full-time fixed-term post, which I then was seconded from NHS Grampian. So I was still employed under NHS Grampian, but working at Robert Gordon for what was supposed to be just 1 year.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah. And I thought this is such a great opportunity, increase my skill set, get some new perspectives. And yeah, I just thought this is just too good an opportunity to miss.
Because I guess you had choices, didn't you? I mean, you could always go and do the education thing, but dump the NHS job and off you go for a fixed term.
Yeah, and I didn't really want to do that, partly because you want some sort of job security.
Okay.
So I wanted to be able to go back to the lab. That was always my intention. But whilst I was here, a full-time permanent post came available.
Okay.
So I ended up applying for that, and that's why I'm still in this role now.
You left us.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So you then left the NHS round about 2022, 23?
Yeah.
2020? Yeah, right, okay. Off to Robert Gordon's as a lecturer. For those thinking of this sort of thing, from a salary perspective, was it equivocal?
Yeah, for me, it's been roughly about the same. So I'd say a band 6 is roughly about the same as what a grade 7 is within my post in academia. And I've been undertaking a similar kind of structure as a specialist portfolio in that you do these additional qualifications and then you can apply for a promotion, and that kind of leaves you on like a senior kind of wage, a band 7.
Right, okay. So is there any post-grad teaching sort of qualification that you need to get under your belt to undertake this?
Yeah, so I came in as what's called a developing lecturer and undertook qualifications that's hosted by the institution. So they put you through these like PG Cert type qualifications. It's like classroom based and evidence based as well. So you kind of build like a practice log of all the evidence you have of teaching and learning and assessment. In a similar fashion as you do in the labs, collecting all your evidence of competence.
Right, okay. So in your developing lecturer post, how long did it take you to complete that bit? Do you move into a different grade, or how does it work beyond that?
So at the moment, I've just finished that. So I'm about 2 years in, and will be looking to apply for promotion up to a lecturer grade soon.
Oh, right, okay. So you're still a developing lecturer because we can't use the word junior anymore, can we? Because that denotes whatever the junior doctors don't like about the term junior. Yeah. Right, okay. So this is, it's almost like a trainee lecturer type role.
Yeah. I think it depends. There's lots of different ways that you can go into academia. Obviously, you have those who have gone and done PhDs and they've had some teaching experience whilst doing that. Or if you have come from other institutions that might work slightly differently. This is just how RGU do things and how I've come in from a practice background. I don't have a PhD. I finished my MSc once I got here.
Right, okay.
So I didn't even have an MSc at the time of getting the post.
Okay, have you got any plans to do a PhD?
I've toyed with the idea, but not really. I think I'm happy where I am.
Right, okay. I was going to explore, because this is quite alien to me. I mean, I don't know anything about education other than the college lecturers I met. And I did know a few who had been in a lab and then shifted to academia. But one thing I've never really talked to anybody about is, what is that culture shock like? Is it a culture shock, or is it an easy transition? I mean, even when you were doing your placement, I mean, 1 minute you're putting a swab onto a blood agar plate looking for Staph aureus, the next minute, what?
I'd say it's a very different way of working. And I think because I came in knowing that I was going back to the NHS, I just embraced it and just enjoyed the change. But it doesn't come without challenges. I think when you change role of any kind, you remember things that you liked from your previous role that maybe you don't have here. So the number one thing for me, I think, is in the lab, you always felt like you were working as part of like a really close-knit team.
Yeah.
You would go in 9 o'clock and it was teamwork to get all the samples processed, the reports out by 5. Whereas now that I'm in academia, it's like a constant stream of work. And whilst you are still working as a team, everybody's working on their own individual bits and bobs a little bit more. Okay. And I've probably found that the most challenging to adjust to in terms of the workplace.
I'm not going to accuse lecturers of anything, but I anticipated you turned up and had a big cup of tea and waited for the students to come in. I'm assuming it's more difficult than that.
I probably thought that as well, and there's a lot more nooks and crannies to it than just attending your lecturers and that's you done for the day. There's a lot of research that goes on behind the scenes that I've been trying to get involved in, and a lot of support for the students as well, which is actually a really nice part of my job, that I really enjoy.
So once you've got your little teacher's briefcase, because this has fell right into what the computer said you were going to be anyway. So you come into work in the morning. What does a typical day look like?
So it depends whether I've got teaching. You have quite a varied workload depending on the time of year as well. It's going to fall and rise as you go along. So pre-semester, you're preparing, you're thinking about your timetables and your lectures and what tutorials, what labs are you going to have. I work very closely with staff in NHS Grampian and NHS Highland as well, because they are our placement providers. And as we put placement students out there, we just have to communicate a lot. So a lot of the time I am sitting answering emails or on Teams calls to those. And then you have your teaching, and then at the end of the semester, you're going into your marking, your feedback, and then preparing for the next semester.
Right.
And it just kind of rolls around.
Right. Okay. And I guess the summer holidays are quite long, or do you work during those? How does that work?
We work, although have annual leave allowances the same as everybody else. You can take them when suitable, but obviously summertime is going to be the most suitable. So you do tend to take quite a bit of time off in the summer.
Yeah, because I guess, is taking annual leave in academia slightly more restricted than... I was sorry to anybody that's an educator here. I was going to say real life, right? That's not fair, Mike. So if you're a lecturer or a teacher, I always, and this is just complete ignorance on my part, I'm assuming that it's school holidays, you're off. But is university different to that? It's there's more to prepare. There's different type of working when the students aren't there.
Yeah, so we don't get like the 6-week summer holidays the same way. I know. I wish we did.
Right. Okay.
So it can be a little bit more restrictive, but I wouldn't say any more restrictive than having a shift pattern, working back shifts and night shifts, and having to swap everything to get 2 weeks off.
So I presume when you worked in the NHS, you did, because memory serves me poorly these days, but I think Aberdeen is a 24/7 microbiology lab, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So a bit like Edinburgh. Did you do the 24/7 shift when you were a specialist?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that part of the attraction of going to academia? Is that it's a wee bit more regulated?
Yes and no. I do like that aspect of it now that I'm here, and it is nice not to have to work night shifts and back shifts, but it's not something that ever really bothered me.
Right, okay.
Working shifts, I always knew it would be part of the job, unless you're lucky enough to go to a department that doesn't do
Oh, right.
8 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Do they... Is there a mix, a blended mix of working in academia? I mean, COVID came along and some of us retreated to our offices and didn't go into work. Those lucky enough, I guess, to be in jobs that allowed them just to speak to people all day long, got the ability to do a little bit of work from home.
Yeah.
Is your work like that?
Yeah, we operate like a hybrid system,
Okay.
but most of the term time you're on campus because you've got something to go to, some face-to-face meeting or lecture or lab to attend. But it is a little bit more flexible, which is something you don't get so much working as a BMS in the NHS.
Right.
So that is a nice advantage.
So when you're looking out across the classroom of all these fresh-faced youngsters who you're trying to educate, are there any of them in the cohorts that you see that know exactly what they want to do? I.e., they want to work in a lab, they want to do that, and they know about it because Auntie Joan used to work in microbiology or hematology or biochemistry. Do you meet any people like that?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the first year students I taught last year knew exactly where they wanted to go. They'd been to careers events or like you say, they had family members who have been BMSs. Some of them have done summer placements. So some people do know exactly where they want to end up, but others don't. There's definitely a mix.
Right, okay. So unlike the wandering star that you were, coming in going, I don't know if I want to do this, there are people who, either through connection or life experience, have decided that, I want to do this course for this specific reason. Because you're right, I guess. It's useful elsewhere. You could go off and research drugs afterwards, couldn't you? Or do something. Does Aberdeen take... or does Robert Gordon's have a facility there for people who can do it on a part-time basis?
Not for the biomedical science course at the moment.
Right, okay.
Especially for the applied course, because you've got the placements, which are quite full on.
Right, okay. So you see, like, one of the group of people that are sometimes useful, and a guy that we were talking to in a podcast previously is a biomedical support worker. And I guess the lab that he's in is giving them the opportunity to undertake education as far as he can take it. Is there a culture of that in Aberdeen or Inverness that you know of?
There is. So there was a lot of trainees when I worked in microbiology doing similar things, or many of them had done a degree that wasn't IBMS accredited.
Okay.
They'd managed to secure a trainee role and were doing top-up modules to then go on and do their registration training portfolio. So it does happen, but Robert Gordon's is quite a feeder university into ARI and Raigmore. Because we have such great close connections with them, the training officers, they know our students, they've seen them, and they know that they're capable. So there is a mix. I would say our students tend to pick up biomedical support worker roles in the evenings.
Right,
So
okay. Yeah.
they'll do that alongside their full-time education.
So would you say there's an advantage for a city to have a full-time accredited course where it can feed local laboratories?
Definitely. You only have to go into ARI to know that most people that work there graduated from Robert Gordon.
Yeah.
It is a huge feeder into the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, you won't be old enough, I guess, to remember how they used to do it. So you used to come from school and do either HNC or HND and learn on the job, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I was one of the first degree intakes that got sent away to college one day a week. So there's no day release, if you like it, at Robert Gordon's.
No.
Right.
No, we don't support that at the minute. I know that other universities are starting up and the apprenticeship schemes that seem to be coming up.
Right, okay.
So whether or not something like that takes off in the future.
Right, okay. And when you lecture then, do you have a specific subject area or are you general?
So my main teaching areas are the IBMS registration training portfolio, so looking at the professional practice side of things, and the placement coordination, and also the medical microbiology, which is nice to teach something that's your own.
I mean, everybody in the world needs to know how to do a catalase test, don't they? And a gram stain.
It's been really nice to inject some sort of clinical practice background into the module.
Yeah, but these days it'll all be teaching people how to use a Moldy and so on, won't it? Which is a special machine, listeners, that identifies microorganisms. If you look back so far on your lecturing experience, do you think that this is you for the long term now, or do you have other options?
It's a difficult question.
It's you can be as diplomatic just in case your employer listens to this, right? So, but carry on. Have you many years in the future, would you consider something else?
I think I would. I think I like to challenge myself, and I don't know as I'm the kind of person to stay in a role for forever.
Okay.
So I would never say never to moving and doing something a bit different, or even going back to the labs and looking at the progression rates there. I've retained my HCPC registration, and of course got my specialist in microbiology. So I think it would be quite easy for me to integrate back if I wanted to do something like that.
Absolutely. If you look at it in general terms, then this is a kind of it's not an easy question. It's an easy question to ask. What's the best thing about your job at the moment?
I think the best thing about my job is seeing the students go through placement and the experiences that they have. Because I remember when I was a student, and placement was the highlight for me, even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, and being able to reassure students that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. It's okay if you do this and you decide, I never want to be a BMS, or you might love it. The experience of going out and having a go at things is just so good. So I enjoy supporting the students through that the most, I would say.
Cool. And what's the worst thing?
The marking. For sure.
That fascinates me at the moment. So, because I take it exams are still the same as they used to be back in the Stone Age when I did them, and you write down on a piece of paper, yes, or is it all typing now? Do they type? I don't know. And how on earth the lecturers were going to read my handwriting?
it's sometimes challenging, but no more challenging than reading request forms from some doctors.
Oh, that's true. No, very, very true. And what do you think about the advancement of AI? How does academia view that and guard against it?
I think it's a tricky subject at the minute. I think AI has its place, but nobody's just quite sure where that is. If we're producing professionals who are going to go out and be biomedical scientists, have a really important role in patient care, then it's important that they do have the knowledge and can show that. And AI could potentially have a negative implication for that. But then when you look at how AI is being utilised in some of the laboratories like pathology, there is definitely a place for it and we need to embrace it. It's just doing that in a sensible way is challenging.
Are there mechanisms where lecturers these days can go, you didn't write that, that was written by ChatGPT?
It's quite obvious sometimes. Sometimes you don't need a mechanism. I think if you're going to use it, at least check it for any mistakes.
Check it and change a few words.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, so we established that you might, your future isn't set. You might think about doing a PhD if you can stand that, because I'm sure it sounds like you've pretty much never stopped learning. Is that a theme that's happening? Have you had a year off yet?
No, I haven't. I think that's just the kind of person I am. I like learning, and it's awful when you've got deadlines of submissions, but on the whole, I enjoy just challenging myself. So I think there'll always be something else.
So if my calculations are right, then you haven't had a year when you're not on a course since about the middle of secondary school.
Yeah, that's probably right. A scary thought. I have never thought of it like that, but yeah.
You're a perpetual student.
I wouldn't say I'm a perfect student, though.
Are there any advantages to being a member of staff on a university campus then? Do you get 10% off in the student bar or what?
We're unlucky we don't have a student bar.
What?
We don't really have like a union at RGU. The campus is a bit further out of town, so you would need to get a bus into town. So it's not really logistically, although the campus is beautiful, it's right beside the river. It's not really logistically placed for having a bar.
And it's not like secondary school where I take it there's not a staff room where you can go and hide.
Probably just the office.
All right. Okay. And you mentioned before we were speaking that you're a horse liker.
I am, yeah.
Do you have horses?
I do. So I when I got this job, the kind of more flexible hours and having some time off during summer, because I was always, when I worked in the labs, because I don't have children, I'd always let everybody else with children have the summer holidays off. So now it's nice to have that time. So yeah, I did treat myself to a horse when I
brilliant.
left the NHS.
Right, okay. And if you were to give anybody any kind of bland advice about starting this journey, what would it be?
I think to not put too much pressure on yourself to know what you want to do. Things change and life happens and you don't need to have it all figured out. Students start the first year of the course and love something they didn't think they'd love. Students start the first year of the course and don't like what they thought they'd love. So you don't have to have it all figured out.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, we've got to the perfect length of a podcast. Can you believe that? That's flown by. Thanks for speaking to the podcast. It's a fascinating story because you've just basically cantered through employment, university, back to university again. The perpetual student carries on. It sounds like you're going to carry on with this career and make a great go of it. You're going to run out of things to study, so you're going to have to figure out, do something.
I might go back to physiotherapy.
Oh, physiotherapy.
You never know.
or occupation. Yeah. Go back to that computer again and say, I'm a bit bored now. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And all it remains for us to do is to say cheerio to folks. So it's goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Bye, everybody.